back to 755 is Real. I'm David O'Brien, Braves writer for The Athletic. We are presented by Topps now, folks. Welcome to 755 is Real, presented by Topps. Check out Topps Project 70, celebrating 70 years of Topps baseball cards. And that was my youth there, Topps baseball cards. Anyway, I'm David O'Brien, Braves writer for The Athletic. I'm with my co-host, Eric O'Flaherty, out in Washington, former Braves reliever. What's happening, Eric? How you doing, man?
Not much. Been watching some good baseball. I think that game last night was pretty intense, but
Yeah,
not too much.
I was going to say you're watching good, but you're not watching the Braves, obviously.
Yeah, they've been playing not to their best of
Man,
abilities.
yeah, that's to say the least.
Yeah,
Um, well, let's see. First, let's start with the good news. All right, Austin Riley, after hitting 213 with a 321 OBP, no extra base hits, none, and 534 OPS in his first 16 games, back when everybody was howling for him to be traded or at least dropped to the alternate site.
yeah.
Since then, in 12 games, he's hit, you ready for this? 474 with a 565 OBP, 763 slugging, and a 1328 OPS. That's in a dozen games. 3 homers, 6 RBIs, 10 runs. For the season now, I mean, this is hard. It's hard to believe. We're just over a month in. He is now tied with Acuna for second in the NL in on-base percentage at 431, behind only Bryce Harper at 446. Riley's fifth in the NL in batting average, 329, and 10th in OPS at 890, just ahead of Real Muto at 887. I mean, that's a crazy turnaround for Austin Riley. It's what everybody was waiting for with him.
Do you know what's insane is if he flipped those two spurts though, if he started off the season like this,
yeah,
you wouldn't even notice the last 2 weeks if he was struggling.
You're right.
But when you start the way he started, then nobody believes you're hot when you're hot.
Yeah, because you'd still see his numbers were still really good. He was still,
you wouldn't know he was struggling as bad as he did those first 2 weeks, but that first impression's everything usually.
Yeah, exactly. Acuna's, by the way, still leads the NL with an 1139 OPS, which is a testament to how remarkable he was in the first 3.5 weeks, because he hasn't done much lately since that abdominal strain. I'm expecting him to still get NL Player of the Month. I know I voted for him. I think it'll be announced later today. But it's got to be noted, Acuna in his past 10 games, which is directly coincides with the abdominal strain, was after he missed the 2 games, came back. Since then, he has been a mere mortal, hitting 176, 3 extra base hits, a 723 OPS in its last 10 games. And that's after hitting 419 with a 1373 OPS in his first 16 games. It's kind of like what you just said.
Yeah, the opposite.
Those first 16 games were just surreal. But he's hit, that's 10 games now where he's hit 176 with a 723 OPS and still has that, and still leading the league in OPS.
Yeah, and I don't think you notice as much when he's struggling, because he'll still mix in a 470-foot home run here and there,
Yeah, and still feels like he's gonna have. You wouldn't be surprised at all if he goes 4 for 4 with 2 homers
any day.
Yeah,
you're kind of just waiting for it. When he struggles, you're just kind of waiting for him to click out of it.
Yeah,
but when other guys struggle, you're like, man, it might just be who they are now.
And he's hit a couple of balls to the warning track, to the center field wall in the last couple of days. But, and then the other big one, the Braves got 2 guys raking right now. It's not producing any wins except for that 3-game spurt against the Cubs. But they got 2 guys raking. The other guy's Ozzie Albies. Ozzie in his last 7 games has hit 379, 7 extra base hits. Man, he's an extra base hit machine right now. 5 RBIs and a 759 slugging percentage in that 7-game span. 1178 OPS. So now he's got to get some other guys going, man. Freddie's still not going. Ozuna, he had the 2 homers back-to-back games, but that's about it. And it's all I just read what Acuna's doing. Dansby ain't doing much at all. We'll get to that. But the Braves, here's the other thing, the other bright good news. Just kind of a reminder of how bright the future is. I couldn't believe this when they had to bring Pache back up center field, and then had to bring Contreras back up, which we'll get into to catch. I'm thinking that's a lot of young guys. So I went down through the lineup yesterday when Ian Anderson happened to be pitching, and I thought this is a lot of guys like 23, 24 younger. And sure enough, the Braves had 6 players 24 or younger in the lineup yesterday. That's including pitcher because they have the DH. 6 players. That's like unheard of for a team that's not like totally rebuilding. They had Acuna, 23. Ozzie Albies is 24. Austin Riley has just turned 24 last month. Contreras, 23. Pache, 22. And Ian Anderson, who turned 23 on Sunday yesterday and had a bad start after his 2 great starts back to back. And the other good news, they got 22-year-old Huascar Ynoa starting Tuesday, the series opener at Nationals Park, with his 2.96 ERA. He's only 22 still. And then Max Fried, the other good news, is coming off the IL to start Tuesday, second game of that 3-game series against the Nats.
It'd be good to see him look like himself.
Yeah, they need it badly. Before we get into the bad news, let's pay some bills here. Producer Cam, who you guys will be glad to know, has done a new intro, because for 2.5 years or however long we've been on, that intro has been painful. And Eric and I finally were honest with him and told him, I wasn't sure it was Cam reading it. And at first I didn't want to insult him. It's been so bad that I didn't want to insult him. But finally I had to say, Cam, is that you reading that? Because it is awful. So awkward. It's like 7:55 is real.
The way you do it is awkward.
I mean,
you're holding you back.
Eric,
oh my God.
it's just so. It's so.
I'm not offended in the slightest. What I'm just scratching my head at is, why did it take 2 calendar years for you guys to bring it up?
We didn't want to insult you because you sound like
you guys insult me so much off air. What would be well, hold on. We're gonna get.
I don't know where the intonation is guy for with David O'Brien.
Where
Eric.
Those who listen to the podcast, check out the podcast because there's going to be one of the new intros today, and then I think we're going to go through the list of new intros that I've created on Thursday's show. So
I'm glad, because I think it's limited our audience. I think people have clicked.
I'm turning away people. All right.
I think people have said I can't sit through the intro anymore. It's so.
I've clicked out of our own show over that.
Oh my God! Stop it.
It's so painful to hear a guy force that intro. 7:55. Real.
Okay, we need to pay. Let's pay mine and let's give our thanks to Tops. The presenting sponsor of 755 Israel is Tops.com and Tops Project 70. Tops is celebrating the 70th anniversary of its very first baseball card design with a new program that pushes boundaries while paying homage to their heritage. Founded in 1938 as a chewing gum company, Tops released their first baseball card set in 1951. Now, 7 decades later, Tops has teamed up with 51 artists and creatives from around the globe to revisit and reimagine 70 years of Tops' most iconic baseball card designs through a year-long program called Project 70. Project 70 has brought together creators of all kinds for this extraordinary set. Graphic designers, tattoo and graffiti artists, animators, illustrators, painters, and even a jeweler make up the artist roster, which includes names like Snoop Dogg, Action Bronson, Ben Baller, Jeff Staple, Tyson Beck, Alex Party, and more. Each artist will select their own MLB players and Tops designs from any year to craft a unique story. Ever wanted to know what Babe Ruth or Mickey Mantle would look like in a 1980s Tops design? Or how about Fernando Tatis Jr. in a classic template from the 1950s? Now you can. 3 new cards launch daily all year long on Tops.com and are only available for 70 hours before they're gone for good. While you're there, be sure to be on the lookout for special cards. Each card drops include rainbow foil editions numbered 1 to 70, randomly inserted into each card's print run, as well as a 1-of-1 gold frame edition given to a lucky purchaser. Exclusive artist proof editions numbered to 51 featuring a silver frame are also available for purchase for every card. But hurry, as those sell out shortly after each card is launched. Head to Topps.com to learn more about Project 70 and to check out which cards are live right now. And one more before we roll on with the show.
Jesus, man.
Small businesses are grappling with the impact of these uncertain times and looking for resources. That's why, for the second year in a row, Dell Technologies is assembling an all-star lineup of podcasters to create the first ever virtual conference to share advice and inspiration for small businesses of all kinds. Dell Technologies is here to help safeguard your business with modern devices and Windows 10 Pro to providing relevant content for your business's success. Search Dell Technology Small Business Podference on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Odyssey.com starting May 10th.
Is that all?
I'll let you get a couple seconds into the bad news and then I'll cut you off because I don't know if anyone wants to hear about the bad.
Wow. Well,
I don't want to talk about it.
Anyway, so how can someone who can read that so well do that so well?
I think that's the first compliment you've ever paid me on this show.
Really, to read that so well. How can the same person do such a shitty introduction to our show?
God damn, David.
And think it sounds good. Listen to it every time and go, God, I hit that one. I nailed that one.
Yeah.
I don't listen to it every time. I listen to you guys on the podcast.
I wish you would have, because you would have realized earlier, God, I sound like a geek.
It took you guys 2 years to tell me. I had not seen one comment on Twitter that said differently. Those who are watching on the YouTube live stream, please let us know if it is garbage or not.
People have come up to me and go, Dave, I love the podcast.
In public, they just approach you.
Makes my dog run from the room.
Yeah, that's happened.
And my babies cry. Babies cry. Babies are scared by that introduction. David, Ryan, Eric, Flirt.
Well, for those who will check out the podcast once it's edited, they will have a new intro to listen to or a new voiceover to listen to. And then we'll go through the gamut of all those on Thursday.
All right. Good job, Cam.
Thanks.
It, man.
Get going.
All right.
Anybody still here?
Another bad news. But no, one more good news. I watched last night before I tuned into the Mets-Phillies game. I was flipping through the channels because I wanted to make sure that my DVR was set for Mayor of Easttown. This is a new series on HBO. There are three episodes in now with Kate Winslet. Man, it's phenomenal. I love this new series. It's great. But I was wanting to flip it through my DVR to make sure I had it set. And one of the HBO channels, there's like 7, and I get them all. One of them had Rocky on. And you know, it's that rabbit hole. It's like every time I flip through Bad News Bears on MLB Network, when I start watching the original Bad News Bears, I'm like, I'm going to watch like 10 minutes because the good part's coming up with Kelly Lee. And I watched the whole thing. I started watching Rocky, and I couldn't even flip over to the Mets-Phillies game until it was over because that first Rocky movie is so phenomenal. God, I love that movie. It still gives me goosebumps every time I watch it. The fight scene, that's like right up there, man, with like Raging Bull. The fight scene in Rocky, though, the first one, it's just, in the music, the perfect music.
Yeah.
And then the training scene, you know, it's Gonna Fly Now. I know it's corny, but it still just gets me going, man.
I think Sly was on the sauce for that movie.
Oh, God, he had to be.
A lot of it.
But that's all right. I don't mind if actors do it. I don't mind if there's not a level playing field. Do whatever you need to do the part. That's like rock.
Look the part.
That's like music. Do whatever you need to do to make the music that we love to hear. I don't care. It's different than sports. You know what I mean? Do whatever you need to take. I don't care. But anyway, he was terrific, man. He was great. Everybody in that movie was great. But okay. The bad news. And there's a lot of it. So much, listen, I wrote today, so much went right. We don't think about it in these terms, but so much went right for the Braves 2020. And it's obvious because a lot of things aren't going right. But if you think about it last year, besides the pitching injuries, and there were a lot of them, besides that, they really didn't have major injuries last year. Ozzie had the wrist thing. But when he came back, he hit so well that it's easy to forget that he missed 5 weeks with the wrist. Yeah. And they got by without him because so many other people were raking. But other than him, Acuna had a wrist thing, but he still played. He only missed 15 games. Freddie had the COVID at the start of the year where he just struggled. But once he got back, he was on fire. But they really didn't have any other terrible injuries. They avoided other injuries to other than starting pitchers. That plus they got as good or better than expected performances from really all the key guys in a deep and really experienced bullpen. Then they had career years from Max Fried, Freddie Freeman, Marcelo Zuna had been terrific in 17, but last year he took it to a whole another level. Freddie's MVP. Ozuna led the league in homers and RBIs. And Travis d'Arnaud stayed healthy, had his first Silver Slugger award. And then Ronald Acuna had been great both of his previous 2 years, but he took it to another level last year.
Yeah.
And then Ian Anderson came in, and it was only 6 starts, but he was terrific. It was unbelievable. Yeah. So by contrast, so much has gone wrong for this year through, it's only been 28 games, and you still got, you're only barely over 1/6 of the way through. I had to remind myself yesterday. You're just over a month into a 6-month season. But they've already had more injuries. They've had more injuries to starting pitchers again with that, but also to reliever. That last year, Chris Martin was there all year till, what, did he get hurt again? And Martin was there all year, though. He had a great year. And he's been gone since first weekend this year. He only pitched a couple of times before he got hurt. Now he's supposed to be back like in another week or so, but he's been out for a month almost.
Yeah.
4 weeks. And they don't have the luxury of losing. Last year, they could have lost a key guy in that bullpen and still had 6-7 guys.
Deep.
Right. Yeah. This year, they were basically 4 deep going in, 5 deep, maybe, if you count, a Luke Jackson but they were basically 4 deep going in. And he was your main guy, him and Will Smith. Well, he's been out for 4 weeks now. Then among those 4 Silver Slugger Award winners that I named above, all those guys that had career type years, only Acuna has played at anything close to last year's level. He's been even better. He was till the last 10 games. He was, MVP level till the last 10 games, and still might be the MVP. But he's the only one of those guys that has played to that level. Now, and Austin Riley is the only other player who has met or exceeded expectations this year. And that's because of the last 12 games, because he started slow too. Freeman, Ozuna, d'Arnaud, Dansby, Swanson, that's half the lineup, have all hit 220 or lower, with the latter 3 of those guys, Ozuna, d'Arnaud, and Swanson. They are 3 of the only 14 NL qualifiers who have OPS below 600 for the first month plus of the season. Think about that. 3 of the 14.
I mean, I didn't see Freddie struggling this long.
No.
To be honest.
Because we've never seen it.
Yeah. I thought a lot of it was, you could credit it to Ozuna kind of struggling and him not having backup. But even when Ozuna's gotten going a little bit, Freddie still hasn't quite clicked yet this year.
Yeah. Freddie's had 3 or 4 games here, 3 or 4 games there, but we've never seen him have a slump more than like 2 weeks before.
Yeah.
Now, to make matters worse, and it's a lot worse, d'Arnaud does that thumb injury that you really hate seeing, because when a guy lands, it can look so innocuous, because especially when his happened inside the mitt, so we don't see it. But if it had happened to, like if he was sliding, for instance, or if he'd have just fallen and we'd have had video of it, we would have seen it and it would have looked grotesque. But it was inside the catcher's mitt. So we don't see that thumb bend backwards at that awkward angle. And as you know, when it gets to a certain point, it won't go any further. And if it goes further, the ligament tears.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw that on the ticker yesterday. I saw that 60-day and I said, whoa.
Yeah.
That's not good. I didn't see it coming.
If you were watching a game when it happened and he tried to stay in, he's a tough dude, because he tried to stay in and caught a warm-up pitch with a torn ligament. And when he caught it, you could see he went, like that. He winced. He was in a lot of pain, and he went off the field and he was holding his stomach. You thought, that's either a really bad sprain or really bad sprain of the thumb is a torn ligament. It's either stretched and torn a little, People don't understand when they hear sprain, they just think, sprained ankle, sprained knee. But think of it as a really severe high ankle sprain, where the ligament is torn and you're out, a couple of months, not a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
because that's what it was. He has a torn thumb ligament, and he's going to have surgery this week, next day or two, today or tomorrow. So he's going to miss most of the remainder of the season. They think he'll be back late in the season, but he's probably going to miss at least 3 months, and it could be the whole season. It's not even a guarantee he's going to be back.
Yeah, then he's got to get back and produce after that, and you wonder what kind of, long-term effects that injury will have even when he gets back. But I mean, that was the scoop with him when he was with the Mets, was he always hit. Some guys, it's like some guys can't hit curveballs and some guys can't stay healthy. Like there's just certain things. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason to it why one guy gets hurt, and his injuries aren't something like a weakness. It's just it's just freak things happen to certain guys, and he keeps getting hurt because he was hurt a ton with the Mets, and every time he was healthy with him, he raked. So, I mean,
and it's all pretty, and they're all serious injuries too, like pretty bad stuff that you're like, you can't play with that. Bone chips and things like that, and things with your back. I mean,
that's what I'm saying. Some guys, it's like they're always pulling a hamstring.
Yeah.
And you question the toughness, and you question if they could play through it, but you're not playing through a torn ligament in your thumb.
Right. Exactly. And here's my only concern too, is when he comes back, he's at the worst position possible to come back. Yeah. He's obviously going to have to wear some kind of a brace guard on the thumb to make sure it can't bend again. But that's going to hurt every time he can. I think he's got to have more padding in the mitt too, obviously. But when you're catching a 99-mile-an-hour fastball, if it hits the wrong spot on that thumb,
it's one you'll have to take your time and make sure he's 100% with before you throw him out there.
Yeah. The good thing is, it's not a good thing that he wasn't hitting well, but it's not like you're replacing him at the level he was playing last year, hitting wise, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But he could have started hitting like that. I was expecting him to start raking. He's had a couple of good games, but the good things, if there is anything, is that you have catching depth. You made sure you had that. I'm excited to see Contreras because in spring training, he played great. I mean, he looked good for a few weeks. He looked really good. Completely outplayed Jackson in spring training as far as hitting. And he's got serious power, opposite field power, as well as pull power, obviously. But I really look forward to seeing him because and this will give the Braves a chance to evaluate him and decide, is he the guy, really the guy for the future? So, and the other thing is that was a good signing to get Mathis when they did. A lot of people, when they signed Mathis, went, why? Well, this is why.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've thought about it too, when your staff's struggling sometimes, it can be, especially with the young staff, you don't worry about it as much with an older staff, guys calling their own pitches and stuff, but a lot of young guys just shake their head yes and call whatever you throw. So it could be good for the staff just to mix up who they're throwing to as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I have nothing I'm basing that off of other than just mixing it up. But I mean, I know we're throwing well to Jackson. It's just certain guys just click with certain catchers, and sometimes mixing up that catcher helps. But a guy like Mathis back there, every single guy I've talked to has said he's one of the best they've ever thrown to. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, I retweeted somebody tweeted, it was 2016, I think, what Alex Fernandez's ERA with him catching. Did I say Alex Fernandez? I used to cover Alex Fernandez with the Marlins. No, I'm talking about who died. Why can't I think of his name right now? Jose. Jesus. Yeah. How soon I forget. His ERA when Mathis was catching was like great.
0.2. Yeah.
And then Dan Herron chimed in and said, best catcher I ever had in my career.
That's who I saw. I saw him saying something about him.
Yeah. So
he's thrown to a lot of guys.
Yeah. So yeah, that's going to be good for, and not only will he, like, who said yesterday? Oh, I was talking to yesterday. Andy Anderson said he's thrown bullpens to him for about a month now since they got him, and he said terrific.
Yeah.
So I think just having Mathis in the dugout's really going to help, and in those catchers meetings probably already helped, but he hasn't been with the big look club. And now having him in that meeting, it'll be like Tyler Flowers was last year in those meetings. But Mathis has seen everything. But I already saw him on the dugout yesterday. It looked like he'd been there forever, talking to everybody. I mean, he's one of those guys that's really approachable, goes out of his way to talk to everybody. it'll be like having the proverbial extra coach in uniform.
Yeah.
So that part is really, that was a great signing for them to get him, because he wants to go into coach, and this is like a transition year. I don't know if he's going to catch another year after this, but he's still in shape. It's not like this is he's still in really good shape. I was surprised to see how good a shape he's in, but he's 38 and can still, call a great game. And so that it's just good that they sign him. And then the other option, they got Flowers still. They've got him. He's been helping the team.
I know. I was thinking about that
With game preparations, and that's why they wanted to keep him active. And he's been catching bullpens at home, like some local pitchers, that kind of thing. And he's got like an elaborate thing he put up, a batting cage in his basement, big basement with a weight room and everything. So he stayed in, and he's always in great shape. So he'll be ready if they need him. So they're not going to be caught with their pants down as far as, having backup catching.
Yeah, I thought about that with Flowers too. Is it's one thing to be there weighing in, but it's a whole nother ball game to be actually catching the pitchers, seeing the ball coming out of their hand, and kind of evaluate him from that vantage point he's used to. I don't know how much of an impact you can have sitting up in the front office, but getting a guy like Mathis back there catching somebody that's a little off, like Anderson, I thought his curveball was off in his last start. But to be able to have a guy that actually sees that, even if Mathis isn't in the game, if you just got guys throwing bullpens to him, he can contribute in that way and see some things that a young guy might miss too.
Yeah, Ian yesterday, he had the back-to-back starts with no runs allowed. I mean, he had the scoreless inning streak going and everything. And then yesterday, just didn't have it, man. Snit said it seemed like he didn't really have a feel for anything. It was a grind the whole way.
Yeah.
To his credit, he still had it.
Battled.
Yeah, for 4 innings, he grinded through it. But what's that like? I mean, as a reliever, they can get you out of there after you face a couple of guys you don't have it. But as a starter, they can't really take you out in the first inning. You got to just get through it, gut it out, and figure something out, and hope you have more than 1 or 2 pitches.
Well, that's the whole reason teams like having some veteran starters on them, because when you don't have it as a reliever, like you said, it's pretty apparent quick, and they'll just throw the next guy in. But you don't have it in the first inning as a starter. 1, you got time to find it, but 2, it's like we still need you to eat some innings.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what you've seen that with like Bryce Wilson and Kyle Wright, where when they don't have it that day, it can get really, really ugly quick. And that's kind of what teams love about veteran starters, is they've just been through those struggles so many times.
Yeah.
They find a way to just give you 5 okay innings and not have it blow up on them. But yeah, I mean, I thought Ian yesterday, I thought his changeup was starting to get better, but he left some curveballs up in the zone over the heart of the plate that got hit pretty hard. And Bichette was on his heater, but yeah, it'll be real nice if Fried comes back and does his thing like he was last year. The team could use it.
I mean, it could be huge. They got to get him back I don't think they can do this without him.
No.
I think they need to get him back at that, whatever was bothering him. Hopefully he's had a couple of weeks to kind of reset, and you just hope that he figured some things out. I mean, there had to have been something a little off that because it was start after start, that he just wasn't himself. I know it wasn't a lot of starts, but it was enough that you're going, what's wrong? I thought he had gotten past this last year.
Well, he was either tipping or he was just showing the ball real early. I saw him kind of falling off toward third base a little more than last year. And then I just saw him giving up hits on some pitches that shouldn't be hit. So, I mean, that tells me 2 things usually, is you're either tipping it and the hitters know what's coming and know what to look for, or you're just showing the ball. And it's crazy how much of a difference hiding the ball makes. Nobody really measures that. Everybody just measures velo, and everybody gets all excited. And then you see a guy throwing 100 miles an hour just getting hit all over the yard, and nobody can figure it out because their only measurable is velocity.
Right.
But if you fly open and show the ball and the hitter sees it for an extra 3 feet, I mean, that's like a year, that's hours for them extra to see the ball in hitting terms. They see the ball way longer. It gives them time to time it up and read it. So I thought, watching him, I thought he was probably just pulling off and showing the ball early and lost some of his deception. But I mean, it's hard to really analyze because he was still throwing 95, 96, and the curveball looked good. I mean, sometimes you just left scratching your head, and he might not even have an answer right now, and he might come back and just be better because that's baseball. But hopefully he, got back to the drawing board and figured out what was going on.
Yeah, I mean, you see it even with more established guys. You see them with an ERA of 5, 4 starts in, and you wonder what's going on, and then they figure things out. But
Yeah,
there aren't many like DeGrom.
that's just on all the time. DeGrom had a bad start the other day. I was watching him. I said he looks like shit today,
Yeah,
and I knew he was off, and he still went 6 innings with a hit and 9 strikeouts.
dude, he is. Bauer has the year last year where he's right there with him, and but you see him this year. DeGrom, Bauer can get roughed up in a few starts and have a normal ERA and all that. DeGrom just doesn't do it. He just doesn't.
No,
He's just
I think with
so
him,
dominant.
with him, it's extension too. That's another thing I didn't bring up. Deception, extension. The closer you're throwing the ball to the hitters, the less time they have, and that's not going to slump for him. He's never not going to, because he's so tall, and that's just his deliveries. He's like Josh Johnson. We used to face Josh Johnson, and the guys were like, he's throwing it like he's 10 feet away. And you'd watch Josh Johnson pitch, and it looked good. It was 94, and he was hitting spots, but it was the deception and the extension of his delivery that guys just didn't have time to track it. I think that's kind of an area that everybody slacks on evaluating guys, but DeGrom's extension is never going to slip. I mean, he just blows his fastball by guys. So it's like his 98's like 101. When you watch another guy throw 98, if they're cutting the ball off and not getting extension, it might play more like 93, 94.
Yeah, and that's one of the analytics is extension. They do it right down to the inch, to the half inch. Verducci had was showing a guy, I forget who it is, a guy that actually gets off the ground with both feet briefly, a starter, throws close to 100. And his extension is the same as a pitcher like 4 inches taller, because he extends so far. But they had a still shot of him. There's a brief moment when his back foot is off the ground along with his front foot.
Yeah.
Completely off the ground. And he's come back from Tommy John, which you would think would be more pressure on the arm. But I guess once you get that power to push you forward and you get off the air, it's not like you're using all arm. But he's airborne for a second. He's throwing about 100.
Yeah. Well, that's what Jordan Walden used to do. He pitched a little bit, but he did if you looked at him, he was in the air before he threw it. Now, I would try that shit in BP. I'd try it so hard.
I bet you guys did.
Oh man, you got to be built a certain way, and you got to be extremely loose and flexible to throw like that. But it allows guys to fire their hips in a way that you can't when you're on the ground, and they get that velo. But I mean, for me, extension's every bit as important as velocity.
He had to have so much stress on his arm, man. He ended up having Tommy John, right?
He had it all. I mean, he was, that's so much torque on your body, you got to be built for it.
It was crazy. He was a thick guy, muscular.
Yeah.
That was crazy what he would do though. Yeah. He was in the air like inches,
6 inches off.
Yeah.
It was easy to see.
So yeah, yesterday Contreras comes in, gets an RBI single. It's tough to judge anything else because Ian had his first bad start, but I ain't going to put that on Contreras. Ian said he just struggled. I mean, that was nothing to do with the catcher. So I did make a base running mistake. It didn't tag up going second to third, but in the pantheon of mistakes they've made, man, the Ozzie mistake yesterday, I don't know who that was on. Ozzie, did you see he rounds first? He singles. He didn't single. They ruled an error on Bichette. Now, I don't know if it's on EY. I still think it's Ozzie's. Ozzie's got to be aware of this, but the throw gets there just as Ozzie's crossing the bag. So I could see where Ozzie wouldn't see it. Bichette missed it. It was low throw, or Bichette threw the ball. It was low and bounced, and Guerrero, it got past him, I think, and Ozzie thought Guerrero caught it. But Ozzie goes past the base and turns left, and you can't do that if there's any question at all. But he turned left, and he didn't know it got past him. The catcher had come up meanwhile and backed him up. Catcher picks it up, and Ozzie's out there kind of in no man's land.
Yeah.
And Ozzie was like, what happened? And then Ozzie kind of took off, but it was too late. He got a rundown. He's out. So, I don't know. There weren't many people in the stands. The place only holds 8,000. And with the attendance restricted, there's like 1,800 people there. So if EY yelled it, I don't know why he wouldn't have heard it. But anyway.
There's not time for that.
Yeah.
Honestly, there's no time for a first base coach to it's almost a reaction play. And some guys just, they think the ball gets past them and they're going to get that extra bag, they start to turn left. That's 100% on the base runner.
But he didn't start to turn left to go to the back. He's turned left to go to the back to the dugout. He didn't turn left to go.
He thought he was out.
Yeah, he thought he was out.
Yeah, either way, there's no time for EY to do anything there.
That's what I thought. That you've either got to turn right regardless.
Yeah, no matter what.
Or turn left and take off.
Yeah.
But you can't turn left like you're out and go back to the dugout.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't just assume the throw's going to be there and he caught it. Anyway. Again.
Yeah, I mean, that's on him.
Yeah.
There's nobody else to blame.
Yeah. There were so many bad things that happened yesterday. Snit, kind of covered and said, I had no idea what happened. He didn't throw him under the bus. Snit never does like that. So, but Snit said, this is some kind of grind that we've been going through in the first 5 weeks since we started the season. And there's nothing to do but just continue to grind through it. The good thing about the whole thing is we're not where we want to be, but nobody is running away with the division. We're right there. We just got to keep fighting through this thing and hopefully get hitting on all cylinders. He's right about that. I mean, as bad as they've played, they are 2 games out of first place.
I know.
5 weeks into this thing. And
you just got to be grateful for that no team's gotten, freakishly hot right now. And it's a tough division, but I mean, it sucks to struggle for this long, for sure. You forget that it's a 6-month season and you struggle for a month straight like this and don't play like yourself. It's easy to get caught up on that roller coaster, but
yeah,
there's still 5 months left. You're not even going to remember this.
5 months.
When you get to July, you get to August, you're not even going to remember this, but it's really hard to keep that in perspective. And the longer the struggle goes, the harder it is to keep saying the cliche stuff.
Right.
And
people don't want to hear
quotes. At some point you got to be like, we suck ass and it's time to turn it around.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure they're already at that point in the clubhouse. But
the amazing thing is if everybody in the division was playing really well, and there were teams that were like 16 and 12, 18 and 10 or whatever. And the Braves were 2 games out, say they were in 4th place, but still 2 games out. You'd be like, oh, this is great. We're right.
Yeah.
2 games out is nothing.
Yeah. But it's the way they've gotten here.
But when you're playing terrible.
And everybody else is kind of playing bad too. It's still
right. Right.
Clean it up.
It's a totally different feel to it, but you're only 2 games out, which is nothing. With 5 months 2 games out would be nothing with 3 weeks left.
It's 2 games out in the last 2 weeks of the season. You're still like, all right, we can pull this off.
You can make it up in literally one series.
Yeah, you can go head to head, sweep them, and you're in first place.
They go head to head with the Nationals this week. If they sweep them, they're ahead of the Nationals, who now lead the division. Now, I don't know what the Phillies and Mets are going to do because they're also ahead of the Braves. But I mean, it's that close. It's just when you're not showing any signs of doing that, which they did against the Cubs. Now, it tells you how bad the Cubs have been playing too, though.
Yeah.
But they just destroyed the Cubs for 3 games. The Braves offense was clicking on all cylinders for 3 games.
Yeah. Well, it's got to be weird to go play at a spring training field. I was watching that yesterday. Like, I don't know how the Blue Jays are doing this, because it looked like a spring training crowd.
It was. And they still had the cardboard things up too.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
man,
I mean, you can't sugarcoat it at this point, and they know they got to get it going, and it's a matter of just buying time until you do. But I understand people freaking out at this point because it hasn't been convincing.
Yeah, the pitchers gave up a ton of home runs, and you could say the park was small because it is. This place as small as any in the league, but the Braves didn't hit a ton of home runs.
Right?
You think the Braves would have hit a ton of home runs since they're lead the majors or the second, So, but they did.
No, they just got beat that series. There's no way out of that one.
Yeah. So you get Contreras up now. You got Huascar Noah. I'm assuming we'll throw to him on Tuesday. You can have a 22-year-old and 23-year-old battery. Yeah, but that's nothing. You had that.
Yeah. The thing I think about that though, and I go back to a lot is like, it's not just what pitch you call. It's understanding the pitcher and how to get him back in the zone or get him back on track. I think a lot of experienced catchers kind of learn sometimes you got to call the wrong pitch right now. to get the pitcher locked in and back in the zone. And
Yeah.
experience is something, especially behind the plate, that I think is the last place you want to sacrifice. So I mean, that's why it's good Mathis is around.
Yeah, that's why the people that said, people are frustrated with the Braves losing, and some guy, said on Twitter, I'm ready for, maybe it's time just to get rid of Darno. He was good while he was here, but let's go with the young catchers now. I'm like, dude, that's the place where you can't say that.
Yeah,
just go let the kids play. You got to have a guy catching. You got to have somebody that takes charge of the game, man. I mean,
yeah.
And that's why Contreras and Jackson weren't up earlier, because they still had to work on game calling, And with Contreras, you have a language barrier with some pitchers. So you still got to work on that part of it too.
Yeah.
So, and he has worked on it a lot, game calling and all that. So we'll see. But
you could feel it when you're on the mound, though. You could feel when they're putting fingers down, if it's like, like they're guessing, and that gives you the least possible amount of confidence in the pitch when you feel like the catcher's just like, if they don't know what you want to throw. Instead of taking charge, they're trying to call what you might want. So they just kind of put like a 2 down and kind of no clue, so they're trying to figure out what you want. But meanwhile, you're trying to get a hitter out, and you're playing this game where you're trying to get on that same page with your catcher. When it's a veteran dude you trust, they just put it down and they they give you a head nod and make the pitch, a little glove pat. That gives you so much more confidence. So I mean, if you start seeing that stuff, it could be tough for the young pitchers.
And that's why I think it was so important the last few years. The Braves had these veteran catchers all the time. They had 2 of them all the time.
All the young pitchers, yeah.
Tyler Flowers, no matter what he's hitting or whatever, some pass balls, whatever, like what you're talking about. People don't see that, though. And that's important, man.
Oh, it's so important. I would have it happen when I was struggling after Tommy John. I'd pitch to these guys that they knew I was a sinker ball guy. And I'd go ball 1 on a sinker. And they'd be like, well, he's a sinker ball guy. Ball 2 on a sinker. And when you see a guy missing on the same pitch, a young catcher will keep calling it because they think that's your pitch and your go-to. A guy like David Ross, he would call fastball in because he'd see me missing to the other side of the plate. He'd know he needed to get me back on line and back on track. And you'll see young catchers just kind of like tap their shoulder and tell you to stay close. But a lot of time it's the pitch itself that's kind of causing you to lean that way or move that way. So Rossi would call a fastball in, and he'd get me back on line with the plate. Instead of giving me the shoulder tap or trying to talk to me, he'd just take charge and do it for me. So I throw that fastball in. And even if I missed, the next pitch was going to be off of that line versus the bad line of the sinker where I was flying open and pushing it. That's the type of stuff that veteran catchers are so good at, and they fix for you in a pitch or two. It's real important with relievers when they come in not sharp too. I mean, you expect starters to be able to have a lot more of those mechanical cues. Relievers are kind of just chucking it. But that type of stuff is what you can be missing, not having a veteran catcher back there.
And that's the kind of thing that the average people just don't even think about. I mean, we don't even think about that a lot, but that's the kind of stuff that's why people don't understand the importance of having veteran catchers. And that's one of them, man.
They're quarterbacks. They're your quarterback. They're calling the plays.
And that's why Maddox loved having Eddie Perez back there. He loved having the defensive guy. Maddox was willing to sacrifice the offense that Javi Lopez provided because it was so important. And if you're as great as Maddox, I don't need, the extra run because they're not going to score more than 2 or 3.
But even think about Maddox.
I'm on.
Even think about the catcher mattering that much for Greg Maddox. A guy that good, that experienced, still wanted a certain guy back there to kind of help him through the games.
He wanted to be on the same page with his catcher.
Yep. With all his experience.
And that's why a guy like Mathis, survives hitting under 200 because he's so great defensively that it doesn't matter if he hits at all.
And there's no analytic for that. There's no analytic for, you can look at the numbers. The only one. Framing, but you can look at the numbers and see okay, this guy sucks with that pitcher, but how would that pitcher have done with a better catcher calling different pitches and getting him locked in? There's no way to measure how the pitcher would have done with a different catcher.
That's interesting. It's going to be, and I want to watch Mathis when he gets in there, because that's what everybody says about him. How great he is doing that.
I wouldn't be afraid to, the offense hasn't been lights out and winning games anyway. I wouldn't be afraid to start him a few times and see how it goes pitching wise.
Yeah, he's going to get some stars for sure. Contreras will be the main guy, but it's not going to be I don't think it's going to be like catch 5 out of 6 games or anything, but we'll see. Yeah, Anderson said I made a couple of mistakes with the breaking ball. I ended up paying for him a little bit yesterday. It was the first time he lasted fewer than 5 innings this year. He went 4. Said I felt like I battled. I was just a few pitches away and just didn't execute. That can be the difference up here.
Every
He's
time.
a smart guy, man. Anderson's
Yeah.
a smart kid. He said their lineup did a good job of taking some really close pitches, and they made me work. But there's a few pitches that I want back. Definitely, it's tough following up 2 really good ones with this. 2 good starts with this one, but that's part of it. We'll move on from this one, and hopefully there'll be many more like the last 2. That Toronto lineup is impressive, man. Especially now they have Springer at the top because he didn't come back. He just came back for this Braves series. First game's back. You add him in there, and that's a loaded lineup.
Yeah.
How about that catcher? Dude's huge. He's like 5'9" and like 270.
No, but if you can hit, and you don't have to be too fast at catcher.
Let's see. Contreras, he was 4 for 10 last year when he was up at the start of the year. He had to catch that opening road trip. Him and Jackson went on that opening road trip. He looked good there. So, and he looked great this spring. So we'll see. Jackson, they put him on the DL. They said he had a strained hamstring, which was bothering him a little bit. And then he had to start that 10th inning at second base. And when he took off, tagged up, went to third and slid head first, I thought, that's a big man to be running like that. Sure enough. Yeah. But I mean, I had to think that they had made it clear. Sned had made it clear in spring training. If we need a guy to come up and fill in, if somebody gets hurt, if Darno gets hurt, Contreras is the guy, not Jackson. Jackson was there as a backup, was not going to be an everyday guy. So this worked anyway. I don't know if they just called it a hamstring strain. That's the impression I got, because they're not going to have Jackson backing up Contreras, and they're not going to have Jackson being the primary guy. And Mathis is obviously not going to be the primary guy. So,
well, it's going to be impossible to measure, what difference Mathis makes even when he's not in the game. But yeah, I mean, I know it's the type of stuff you hear about, and people get sick of hearing about a veteran presence and all that stuff, but you don't keep hearing about it because it doesn't matter. Right. I mean, it matters that much to the players. It's just something you can't measure. He's going to be leadership, things like that. He's
going to be huge for Contreras, man, and the young pitchers. Jackson 1 for 23 with 2 walks and 13 strikeouts. That dude's just overmatched right now at the plate, man. I don't know if he's ever going to hit, but he does not hit in the major league level, and he's had a few chances now the past few years. So,
well, you better be Jeff Mathis behind the plate then. I mean, that's
with
your
more than Huascar Noah.
Yeah.
Can't just do it with him. So they also put Guillermo Heredia on the IL Saturday. And that's really unfortunate because this guy, he's not a kid at all. He's 30, but he's really taken advantage of the opportunity. He's been the only outfielder besides Acuna, obviously, that's done anything for them. I mean, he came in and really gave them a spark big time in center field. So that hurts. But then you bring Pache back up. Pache had a week to work on his swing after coming off the IL. And I don't know if he made some adjustments. He hits a grand slam in his first plate appearance, first game back. It's a grand slam. He's also had some strikeouts since he got back, so I ain't ready to say he's fixed, but obviously did something while he was down there. He said he felt a lot better, confident after working with the hitting coaches down there at the alternate site. It's good because they're going to need it, because we know he can play great defense, but Guillermo Heredia was really producing in that center field spot. And Heredia will be back in 10 days.
I like that bunt single he had yesterday too.
He did. He's had 2 of those. That's a nice skill to have for sure.
Yeah.
But Heredia should be back in 10 days or so. I don't think it was anything severe with him. I think it was a mild one, but we'll see on Pache if he's got it fixed, because he struggled mightily that first couple of weeks that he was up. So Snit made a point. Snit said the number of injuries is just ridiculous in Major League Baseball right now. He said, and I don't know why. We had a normal spring. He said, I guess it's just one of those things. We're just lucky everybody's kind of treading water in the division right now. But there's been all kinds of injuries in the division and around baseball. Key guys going on the IL all the time now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I always wonder if I don't think it's related to all the different strength stuff guys are doing, but I mean, that quote, I think it was David Wells, said you can't pull fat. I mean, everybody's in such good shape now. You got to wonder,
Bobby used to say that all the time too.
Bobby would say that too. Yeah. I mean, the training guys are doing, and everybody's performing at their max capability.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Yeah.
there was guys that could have thrown 100 back in the day if they got on the right training program, but you know, you got to wonder if your body's built for it or not. And everybody's kind of pushing their body to the max. And, you know, all the hypes on exit velocity and pitching velocity, everybody's kind of freed up to go all out, swing as hard as they can and throw as hard as they can. I think you're going to keep seeing a lot of injuries from guys like that.
I totally agree with the pitching because I think they are pushing the envelope. I think they're at the upper limit on what the human body can take right now with what they're doing. Because pitching, as you know, is not a natural motion to begin with.
No.
Which is why there's all shoulders and elbows are always breaking down. There's nothing normal about that pitching motion. So when you add all the tech, all the fitness these guys are doing now and how strong they are, and so it's like kind of like when you're on steroids, the muscles get too strong for the ligaments and tendons. Well, these guys are so fit now with what they're doing year round. They're pushing it and pushing it, trying to get those last couple of miles of velo.
Yep.
And every pitch is max effort for these power guys. You
Yeah.
just hear them. They're grunting it. It's every pitch. And they're like, they're not out there pitching like a Tom Glavine or Greg Maddux where they're taking a little bit off and they're throwing 88, 92,
No,
you know, and
it's peak.
Most of the guys, so that's why it's amazing that DeGrom is a slender guy, and as hard as he throws, that he holds up. You know, he's had some back issues, but nothing major, you know.
But DeGrom's training program is like, I played with him. He does tubing and runs.
Mhm.
You know, he's
smart.
throwing but he's throwing just what he was born with. Like that's who he is. He's just a tall, really athletic baseball body. You know, he hasn't, if DeGrom added 20 pounds of muscle, I bet you he'd get hurt. You know, I mean, he's had injuries in the past. He's already had Tommy John, but when you look at these guys now,
He'd be Syndergaard.
He would, and Syndergaard gets
20.
hurt more. I
Yep,
mean,
all the
Syndergaard
time.
added 20 pounds of muscle one offseason, tore his lat.
He can't stay healthy. And you look
No.
at him, he's the most fit pitcher in baseball, probably. Him and the guy in Cincinnati who stays fit somehow, as big as he is.
Lorenzen.
But he's a reliever. I mean, Syndergaard, as a starter, he's too big, man. He's too. He's like Stanton. Stanton can't stay healthy, can't stay on the field. Judge can't stay on the field. All these big guys that are like look like they're bodybuilders, you know, look like they're big competitive bodybuilders. They're always getting dinged up, man.
You look around the baseball clubhouse, and anybody you see with a six-pack is an injury risk. You know, I mean, I think Brandon Beachy was probably like 6% body fat, always hurt. You know, Hayward was shredded, but
Jordan
that's
Schaefer.
how he was born. Schaefer had a 15-pack. You know,
And Jason was hurt a
body.
lot when he's here too. A lot of nagging stuff. But Schaefer couldn't stay healthy, and he was a rock.
Yeah. I think about that. And I think it's just, you know, baseball, you're playing every single day. It's not like the other sports where you see these freak athletes, but they get days off and they get to recover. Basketball, they play a lot more than football. But anybody I saw that was just shredded in baseball, it seemed like there was a 90% chance they were going to get hurt that year.
Mm-hmm. Well, in football, you got a week to recover.
Yep.
So, but in basketball, if you think about it, a lot of the really cut up, shredded dudes are always hurt too.
Yeah.
So, but baseball, I agree with you, man. They got to play every day, and when you're that ripped,
you need a little cushion. You need some you need like some backup carbs to get you through the day so you don't dry out and get dehydrated.
Here's another thing where I think what's showing up where the Braves don't have the deep bullpen, obviously. Last year, it was a 1-run deficit or a 1-run lead, whatever it was, they would hold the game in check for 4, 5, 6 innings until the offense came, and you knew the offense was eventually going to have a 3, 4-run inning and win the game. This year, they're not keeping the game in check a lot of days. They're not as deep. They can't go 5 innings and just run 5 guys out there. They can do it for 2, 3, but they can't do it for 4 and 5 every night. They don't have the depth in the bullpen. They don't have the offense right now that you can rely on to have the 4-run inning. As a result, they're 0-4 in extra inning games. They are 0-6 in games when they're tied after 7 innings. I know that's a stat where you're going, that's what does that mean? But that's one of those games. That's one of the stats that showed how good they were last year at those games. Last year, they felt like if they got to the 7th inning, they were tied or down a run, they were going to win the game. They felt like they had better chance than the other team to win the game.
Well, if you're 3-3 in those games this year, you're in first place.
A year ago, in its shortened 60-game season, they were 2-3 in extra innings, and they were 2-1 in games tied after 7 innings. So They also had 17 comeback wins in 60 games last year. So far, they got 5 this year in 20. Or what have they played? 26 games.
Yeah, I mean that's the big thing you're not seeing is all those comebacks.
Yeah.
When they get down 3-4 runs this year, it kind of feels like here we go again. Versus last year, you felt like even if they were down 4-5 runs in like the 6th, 7th inning, they had a shot because that offense always came around. But it's easy to overlook the fact that the bullpen always kept it at 2 or 3 or 4 runs, whatever it was at. You know, they didn't give up those late runs.
Yeah, last year you felt like if they got to the 6th inning, say, and they're down 2 runs, you felt like,
they're winning.
Nothing. They're going to win this game because the bullpen's not going to give up another run, and there's no way the Braves are not going to have a 2-run inning in there somewhere or a 3-run inning to win this game. You just don't feel that this year. You don't feel
that was part of the luxury of having those 3 guys at the end that you didn't have to use when you were down 2 or 3 runs, and you had 3 guys that were hot, you know, waiting after them that could pitch in those 2-3 run games when you're down and keep it there. And they haven't had that this year.
And they thought that they could get by with the lesser bullpen because they thought with the starters having so much more depth and adding Charlie Morton and Drew Smiley, and then with the experience they gained last year, they thought the starters were going to go
6, 7 innings.
5, 6, 7 innings instead of 3, 4, 5 innings they were going last year. 6, 7 innings is not too much to ask with this group, you would have thought, but they're not doing it. I mean, the other day, Ian goes 7, and it's like a big deal because it was the first guy that done it this year. And you'd thought they would be by now. They'd be getting that from like almost every guy in there, and they're not at all. Yeah. So Charlie, like we said, he's been, you know, his stuff's still great, but he's had, you know, he had 2 bad innings in that game the other day at Toronto, that small place to get the ball up and out. But Drew Smiley's been a disaster so far, and maybe he gets it turned around, but so far he has been a disaster, man.
I mean, it was a gamble. You know, I mean, you were gambling on a small sample size of 5 or 6, you know, pretty good starts with the Giants. But yeah, I mean, I think that if you did have the starters locked in, you might not be having any conversation about the bullpen.
I totally agree.
You know, I mean, because that puts a lot of stress on your pen, not just when you come into the games and they're close, but when you're sitting there watching and the starter's already given up 4 in the 2nd inning and you got to start stretching. You know, I mean, relievers love their routine and they get thrown off it when the starters aren't doing their thing. But I mean, nobody expected Fried to struggle, you know, not be as bad as he was. And I think Smiley was kind of a question mark, but you weren't going to have to be in your mind. You weren't relying on him real heavy either way because you had Charlie, you had Fried, you felt great about Anderson. Soroka was coming back. Wilson looked really good in the playoffs. You know, I mean, with the rotation struggling like it has, I mean, it's just kind of been one thing after another, but I wouldn't have expected the pen to be struggling like they have. And they haven't been that bad. They just haven't been able to cover that depth, you know, that you need. But
yeah. Charlie's been good, but not as good as you thought. I mean, look at the ERA. Ian Anderson and Huascar Ynoa, who you weren't counting on, those have been the only 2 guys that have met or exceeded expectations. Those 2 guys.
Yeah.
Out of all the starters.
Yeah.
The Braves, man, this is hard to believe. The Braves 5.06 ERA is the highest in the majors now. When you ever thought you'd see the Braves with the highest ERA in the majors?
Team ERA, they're the highest?
The highest. I mean, that's crazy. This team's won 3 straight division titles during the whole rebuild. The whole focus of every move, every trade was pitching.
Yeah.
So you just thought that they were entering another kind of golden era of pitching, not where you're going to have 3 Hall of Famers in your rotation, but, you know, and I don't think this is going to last and be an annual thing, but right now they have the highest ERA in the majors. So it's no surprise that, I mean, it's amazing they're only 2 games out of first place when they also haven't hit.
It's hard to keep spinning that, you know,
on a regular basis. They hit it.
Yeah, they haven't hit like you expected, but
the total numbers, the raw numbers of hitting, the runs and home runs are good.
Yeah.
But they haven't hit up and down the lineup at all like last year.
Not like last year. They don't. I mean, just as a whole with the team, you watch the games and it's like you'd be better off just getting your ass kicked one day and then kicking the other team's ass the next. And it's kind of like, you know, when the offense goes, the pitching doesn't. When the pitching goes, the offense isn't there. They keep losing. They're like keep getting caught in the middle where they'd be better off if everything clicked one game and then they sucked the next. You know, they probably have a better record, but. Yeah, I didn't see. I mean, I wouldn't have seen this coming.
they're having a tough time putting the components together, playing a
time.
clean game. Yeah, they haven't done that much. When they do, you see what they were expecting because they can be really good. But it just hadn't happened. Yeah, right now, I'm looking at the OPS is still, I mean, surprisingly, it is fourth in the majors behind only the Reds, Red Sox, and Dodgers. You just wouldn't think that watching them, you know? You wouldn't think that. The home runs are still there, but Acuna did so much of that early. They hit some home runs. They had but in so many, and they've had it in so few games. They had a couple of, like against the Cubs, they racked up some huge run. Yeah, like the Blue Jays did again the 3 games against the Braves. Blue Jays just had huge numbers to move right up the ladder in home runs. The home runs are still what they're right now. They're 40. They're second in the majors in home runs behind the Reds. But what does it translate to when so many of them have come together? They had the 6-homer game against the Cubs, you know. Pitching. Yeah, this is just startling to me. 5.06 ERA. You're all behind the Tigers, who are a dog shit team. They're 8-21. They have 5.04 ERA, better than the Braves. Cubs 5.01. They're way disappointing. They're 12-16, just like the Braves. Reds, they're all hitting this year. They're 13-14 with a 4.97 ERA. But
things will turn around.
The Padres are at the top of the ERA at 2.91. They're doing exactly what they'd hope their pitching staff would do.
Yeah.
So, and then the starters, that's the thing we're just talking about. The starters have allowed a majors leading 29 homers in 135 innings. Smiley alone, like I said, disaster. He's given up 9 home runs in 19 innings, dude.
Yeah, he doesn't have that breaking ball right now. You know, I mean, and that's
8.05 ERA.
Breaking ball, and then it's not there. What do you do now?
Yeah, 8.05 ERA in 4 starts. Only guy that's given up more homers than him, Kyle Hendricks, 10 in 22 innings. 7 of them were against the Braves in 2 starts, Kyle Hendricks. And then the other guy that's given up as many as him, Fulte. He's given up 9, but he's had 33 in a third inning. So he's got like 14 more innings than Smiley. And his ERA, Fulte's ERA, 4.32 is about half of Smiley's. So, man.
I mean, that was the gamble they took. You know, that money could have gone. That money be helping if it was in the pen right now. But if he was lights out, you know, I mean, if he was doing what he did last year, you're talking about what a great signing it is. It's hard to gauge what a guy's going to do off of a smaller, shorter season.
Yeah. I just saw this quote I had snipped about a Contreras. You know, he's honest. He wanted Contreras to spend the year at AAA, you know, and really work on a lot of stuff, catch every day, keep working on it. But he said, obviously, I think a year in AAA would be perfect for him in a perfect world. He goes, this is not a perfect world. He's going to get some very valuable on the job training, and he's matured a lot. I thought he did a good job of handling himself Saturday or Sunday in his first game. He said he's a kid with skills and tools, and we're just going to have to be patient with him and work with him because he's going to have to do the bulk of the catching now.
Yeah.
Helps you having Wilson Contreras as your brother, because I'm sure he's going to be talking to him quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, he'll be able to bounce a lot of stuff off him, but I mean, it is what it is. That's what you're looking at.
Yeah. Said first person to call was his brother. His brother said, it's your time now, man. You need to work hard every day and play hard, play the game. Said, now's your time. He's happy for him. So it's too bad. Hey, if it's going to happen, I wish it would have happened before the Cubs series so you could have played against us. That would have been pretty cool.
I was just thinking that.
That would have been pretty cool. And they don't, they play the Cubs. Did they play them again? No, they've already played them twice. No, they don't play them again. That's too bad.
How many other brothers are there in the league? There's the Ross brothers, the starting pitchers.
There were the Molina brothers. Remember when there were 3? Were there 4 at one time?
Maybe 6. I don't know. I felt like a lot.
I remember one time.
Brothers.
Somebody was complaining. It was about when Posey got the broken leg, and they changed the rules. The Posey rule. Somebody said, "Hey, that's catching, man. If you can't handle it, leave the catching to the Molinas."
Yeah, that's the odds of brothers making it. I don't know.
I know.
If it's just insane. But I mean, it makes sense because you got the same genes and the same parents. But it's
to have 4 of them, man.
You see brothers that one of them is a stud and one of them just sucks.
Exactly.
You know, it's just weird how they come out.
asked Ian about Mathis. He said he's awesome. I've had a chance to throw a bunch of my bullpens to him so far. He's seen a lot in the game. He sees everything, and it's definitely been fun getting a chance to work with him. Again, excited to see what he can do, but it's definitely going to be tough losing Travie. I mean, they were all bummed.
Yeah, it hurts.
Yeah. One other thing. Oh, we got to sell some more ads here before we get to this last segment. Cam, what you got for us, buddy?
Yeah, let's run through these right quick. Baseball season is in full swing with fans heading back to the ballpark and a full slate of games every night between now and October. Things are starting to feel more normal with America's pastime. The Athletic and BetMGM want to bring you even closer to the game we all love. Right now, listeners of the show can bet $1 to win $100, plus get a free year of The Athletic. To take advantage of this offer from The Athletic and BetMGM, go to betmgm.com/athleticmlb, all one word. No. This offer is for new BetMGM customers only, and winnings are paid in bonus dollars. That's betmgm.com/athleticmlb. Visit betmgm.com for terms and conditions. Guess what? This is your public service announcement, as there is breaking news that you've been waiting for. The Manscaped engineering team has confirmed that they have successfully created the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, David, which is now available for purchase in the U.S. and Canada. This new trimmer was just released only moments ago, and David is the first to get his hands on it.
Oh, man, shut up.
What makes this trimmer different from other trimmers? A new multi-function on-off switch can engage a travel lock created for people who like to travel. The Lawnmower 4.0 gives you the ability to turn the 4000K LED spotlight on and off when needed for a more precise shave. If you want to get in on this Lawnmower 4.0 action, get 20% off and free shipping as well. Use the code Athletic MLB, all one word, at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. Use the code Athletic MLB. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. And lastly, David's favorite advertisement there is. It is the lovely Magic Spoon, not Silver Spoon. It has 0 grams of sugar, 13 to 14 grams of protein, only 4 net grams of carbs in each serving, only 140 calories per serving. It's keto-friendly, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, low-carb, and GMO-free. And you might want to try a variety pack. The 4 flavors are cocoa, fruity, frosted, and peanut butter. Go to magicspoon.com/real to grab a variety pack and try it today. And be sure to use our promo code REAL, REAL, at checkout to save $5 off your order. And Magic Spoon is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 100% happiness guarantee. So if you don't like it for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember, get all the delicious taste and guilt-free cereal at Magic Spoon by going to magicspoon.com/real and use the code REAL to save $5 off.
I'm on my box of cocoa right now. Also very good. But the peanut butter, primo. I could take a case of that peanut butter. The Magic Spoon. The peanut butter.
Why can you set up with that?
Oh, I want a case of the peanut butter, man. Did you actually say the lawnmower? If you want to get on the Lawnmower 4.0 action? Jesus, man.
I'm trying to be expeditious about this.
And when they're sitting around brainstorming the name for it. Can you imagine being in that room and having a straight face? I think we got to go with lawnmower.
They've had 4 iterations of it. I mean, it has to be successful on the 4th one.
That's really worked for us. Lawnmower 4.0 with the spotlight. It's like a headlight on it. Is that what it is?
I'm assuming so. Something like that. I don't think it's like a coal miner's hat, but.
Wow.
All right, let's bring it home.
Let's bring it home. Listen, the last thing that we just talked about how the Braves OPS is still way up there. Their home runs are still second in the majors. But the problem, after ranking second in the majors to the Dodgers last year in runs and homers, and leading the majors in OPS last year, they are 9th in runs this season, despite being second in homers with 40. And a key reason, obvious reason, Eric, they're 18th with a 233 batting average with runners in scoring position. Now, I know that could be one of those fluky things, 2 weeks. But I guess that goes hand in hand with some of the guys still struggling overall with their offense. They're not just going to start hitting with the runners in scoring position, but they are leaving so many runners. They left 18 runners on base in the last 2 games against Toronto.
And those are the hits they were getting last year.
Exactly.
I mean, that's
He
And
hits it all the time last year.
it's hard to sugarcoat it, but I mean, it's a few big hits. We're not even having all these downer conversations about him.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just baseball. And I do, I mean, I really do. I'm not just saying that because I'm on this podcast and I want it to go better, but I do believe it'll turn around.
I did too. They hit 233. They hit 270 with runners in scoring position last year, 853 OPS. They're hitting 233 this year with runners in scoring position, 783 OPS. The OPS is still good because they had a few home runs from like guys like Adrianza and Sandoval and Guillermo with his grand slam. You know, that's why the OPS is even as high as it is. It's not the regular guys. So they left 18 runners on the last two games of the Blue Jays series. The big one, the big two, Freddie Freeman and Ozuna. People forget how good these guys were last year with runners in scoring position. They punished teams. Freddie hit 341 with an 1102 OPS with runners in scoring position last year. It was a big part of him winning MVP. Juan Soto was the only one better in each of those categories, average and OPS with runners in scoring position, better than Freddie last year. And Soto missed about third of the season. Ozuna was right behind Freddie. He hit 338 with a 1,067 OPS with runners in scoring position last year. So every time teams pitched around Freddie last year, it seemed like with runners,
they got punished.
Ozuna punished them. So the Braves couldn't lose. I mean, they get runners on base. One of those two guys drove them in, if not
every
both
time.
Yeah.
And we spent the whole year talking about that. And it also just the depth all the way through the lineup. There just wasn't any breaks. And when you got those guys, you know, struggling at the bottom, even though they've been hitting more lately, you know, as a pitcher, it grinds you down mentally just as much as physically to just, you know, never get that break. And I think, you know, you got the pitcher spot back in the lineup this year too. You know, that changes a lot.
So this year, Freeman and Ozuna again have the most runners in scoring position plate appearances on the team. They were third and fourth hitting in the lineup, then second and third now. But so they have the most, right? They've each hit 250 in those situations compared to what I said last year. 338 for Ozuna and 341. That's a huge difference. I mean, 100 points in your batting average with runners in scoring position. Albeit Freeman's got 7 walks and a 419 OBP, and that because Ozuna's not making a pay like he did last year either in his 31 plate appearances. So he's got a 419 OBP. Ozuna has 10 strikeouts and a 701 OPS in a team high 31 plate appearances to runners scoring position. So he struck out 1 out of every 3 plate appearances for runners scoring position. I mean, that's a lot of runs left on the board right there. One guy.
Yeah, and if he's raking, you could be 2 games up in first place. I mean, it can make that big of a difference. But I mean, that's the mindset when Freddie comes up now, and I don't know what kind of pressure Freddie's feeling because he's playing for a contract for the first time in a long time. You know, that can change your mindset a little bit. But if I'm facing Freddie with the game on the line or late in the game and Ozuna's not hitting on deck, I'm throwing Freddie sliders. I'm throwing him sinkers in off the plate, down and away, and just seeing how bad he wants to be a hero.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't, you know, if he doesn't chase, then you gladly take a walk from him because the guy behind him's been struggling and not getting it done.
Yeah.
But your goal is just to not let Freddie beat you. And that's a tough way to hit. You know, I think David Ortiz said it the best 4 or 5 years ago. He said, people don't understand that everybody that faces me, I get their best every time. Nobody ever takes it that bat off against David Ortiz. And that's kind of where Freddie's worked his way into is everybody knows how good he is now. And
he's
and
the MVP.
Yep.
Everybody
Once
knows.
you win that thing, you know, nobody's taking any chances with him until you force them to.
Like Yelich. And Ozuna is the guy that will chase behind him. So, you know, like you said, you try to get Freddie to chase. If not, you walk him because you know Ozuna will chase and you can strike him out right now.
Yeah, and he's trying to turn it around too. So
he's trying hard.
Guys are in a rush to get out of their bad numbers. You know, you try to force it and then you start pressing harder and harder. And now you struck out again. And now you're pressing even harder, you know? So he's kind of in a spot where he's trying to get going and try to get out of that slump. And you don't want to take walks when you're hitting 206 up there. You know, guys want to get hits and put up numbers and it comes down to patience.
So the next highest number of runners in scoring position opportunities on the team behind Freddie and Ozuna, Dansby Swanson and Darno. And you think those first 2 guys I mentioned were struggling. Dansby is hitting 185 with a 563 OPS in 30 plate appearances with runners in scoring position. 185.
And he was known to get the big hit last year.
Exactly. He's had a couple of them this year, but when he gets one, everybody says like Dansby always gets the big hits. Well, no, he hasn't this year, but he just did a couple of dramatic situations, one at least. And then the other is Darno, 29 plate appearances with runners in scoring position. Again, last year he raked in those situations. He's hit 214 with a 457 OPS, 29 plate appearances, runners in scoring position. A year ago, Darno hit 327 with an 890 OPS. Dansby at 267 with an 840 OPS in those situations. I mean, it's just night and day. That's a lot of runs.
Those were all those comebacks.
Yeah, those four guys right there.
Yeah.
That's huge for your offense. So Snicker believes it's only a matter of time for Freeman and Ozuna to get going, especially against lefties, because that's another. It's inexplicable how Ozuna has hit against lefties this year. When last year he was literally the best in the majors against lefties. Okay. Right now, Ozuna is 1 for 24 against lefties with 9 strikeouts, no walks, and a 125 OPS. Right? Second lowest OPS among all major league qualifiers against lefties. A year ago, he hit 356 with a majors leading 1330 OPS against lefties. Explain that one. I mean, top to bottom.
Well, I think I can't. I'm not certain, but I think he was one of those guys that hit righties better before last year, and then last year he just started torching lefties out of the blue. I'm not certain on that, but I mean, that makes a manager's job so much easier to bring the lefty in to face Freddie if he's not just gonna get destroyed by Ozuna if he doesn't get him out.
Yeah.
So you're a lot more likely to bring that lefty reliever in late in the game and let him throw sliders to Freddie. And if he doesn't get them, you got better odds against Ozuna. Where last year you couldn't bring in a lefty to face Freddie if they got to face that 3-batter minimum because you knew that they were going to have to square up with Ozuna after. So, I mean, it makes a manager's job a lot easier.
Night and day. Yeah, when we've seen it, we're seeing it too. We saw it against Toronto all weekend. But we're seeing lefty relievers facing Freddie now.
Yeah.
Freddie against lefties, and he's a guy that always hit him in the past. Not like he hit him, not like he hit righties, but he hit lefties like a 750.
He's not comfortable with bat left-handed.
This year, he's 2 for 28 against lefties, 071 with a 312 OPS. That's the 6th lowest in the majors against lefties, qualified guys.
In the past, I liked it when I would see, maybe a tough righty with really good stuff pitching, and then they'd bring in a reliever to match up against Freddie lefty. I was like, you just did him a favor. Because he'll just take that lefty breaking ball and slap it to left center.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that's going wrong with him this year. But being able to bring that guy in when Freddie's not hitting lefties and Ozuna's not hitting lefties, I mean, that makes a manager's job night and day easier.
Yeah, I just didn't think anything would affect Freddie, mentally or anything like that. I mean, it's because he's gone through so much mentally and dealt with it, the COVID last year. Having the kids this off season, he gets to spring training. You just always
at home.
You think he's a robot. He's just going to hit forever. But you got to wonder, like you said, you got to wonder. You start to wonder, is the contract weighing on him at all? I mean, because I just, like everybody else, I assumed that this would be done by now.
Yeah.
If not during spring training, I thought it would be done at the start of the season. And I certainly thought, and I still think that if it's not done, if it wasn't at the start of the season, I thought during the All-Star break with the All-Star game here in Atlanta, that would be a great time to announce this thing. But if they did wait, I thought for sure that they would tell Freddie, just so you know, they would get the parameters and go like that and everything. But we've asked Freddie like 2 or 3 times already. He said there have been no talks whatsoever. And he said it with like, a tone of like, not like he's pissed off, but he's just kind of like, there have been no discussions, and I'm not anticipating now that the season's starting because I want to focus on the season. And he's not said he won't do that. Let's make that clear. Like some players in the past said, once we get to opening day, I'm not discussing. He has not said that, but he said there have been no discussions. That's what surprised me because I thought for sure the Braves would have told him, look, just so you know, we're going to get this done because we're going to announce that we want to get this done for the All-Star break, with the All-Star game here. But that hasn't happened. So that's why I'm surprised.
Yeah.
And if you're Freddie, you got to be, are you wondering, what are they waiting for? Is there a chance that I'm going to have to move? That they're not gonna, really, they would do that? And I'm still would be shocked if they let Freddie Freeman walk. There's nothing comparable to it for the Braves since Chipper Jones. It ain't like Smoltz, because Smoltz was at the end of his career. Glavine went to the Mets, and Glavine, was a polarizing figure in Atlanta just because he shouldn't have been, but he was because of the union thing. It's not a big union town, and he just did his job as a union rep. So when he went to the Mets, a lot of people thought he's a traitor and all that, which was bullshit. But the Mets offered him a lot more money too than the Braves did. And the Braves tried to keep him, but they didn't offer anything close to the same offer. And then Maddox had come to the Braves from the Cubs anyway, and won a Cy Young before he came to the Braves. And they never thought they were going to be able to keep him forever in free agency because he was the best pitcher in baseball, So there's no comparable thing to Freddie Freeman except Chipper Jones. It'd been like if they let Chipper Jones walk after midway through his career, 10 years into his career, which would have been
how much money did Chipper pass up staying in town?
He took lesser contracts for sure. He could have got a lot more going to the Yankees, among other teams. He wanted to stay here.
And
Freddie does too.
I think about that with Freddie. He outplayed that first contract.
Yep.
And I think
by far.
I don't think you can fault him if he's saying like, look, I already gave you the discount, and if the offer's not there in the offseason, what they were offering him, and you're looking now, but
they didn't offer him anything in the offseason.
Right. But whatever they were talking at, there's official offers, and then there's talking.
But he said there've been no discussions.
Even in the offseason?
That's what he said. There have been no discussions. None.
Well, either way, if you look at it, I would say if he stayed, he's probably passing up at least 50, 60 million. And all right, you've already got 100-something million in the bank. Right. Who cares? But that's for future players, that matters too. Your contracts affect future players, and you got to think about that.
Yeah.
But, it's, if you're looking at, if a team's going to pay me, if he went to the Yankees after hitting 330 again this year and maybe competing for another MVP, what are they going to pay him?
How about the Angels back home? Pujols contract coming off.
So I don't know. I don't know where his headspace is. I haven't talked to him about it, but
he wants to stay here. He's made it clear. He's said it again and again. So I'm still going to be shocked if he leaves. I still think it's going to get done. I never expected him to leave 50 on I would not ask the guy to leave 50. I would not expect him to leave 25 million on the table.
Yeah.
Braves have to make an offer close to the market value. Now, would Freddie take a little less to stay here? Sure. But you can't ask a guy to take 50 million less. He's got 3 little kids. They're going to have kids. He's going to have generations. And it's not like he's made, A-Rod money. He's not made 300 million.
Yeah.
He took less. He outplayed that contract, like you said. This is his only big contract left.
This is it. Because if you sign a 3 years or something like that, and then you hit your mid-30s.
5 years. They got to offer him 5 years. He's not 33, 34. Yeah. They got to offer him 5 years.
And he's the type of guy that I don't really see falling off the face of the earth, because it goes back to his training routine, his flexibility, the way he's built is he's just one of those guys that I think is going to maintain his athleticism late into his 30s and keep hitting. And he's got a simple swing. He's not swinging like Javi Baez and putting up his numbers. He's just leveraging well.
Or Tatis
Yeah,
he's going to play first base, and like McGriff probably till he's 40. And if he does have to come off first base, he'll go DH. It's a no-brainer. But I don't think he's going to come off first base.
You could see it all the time. Guys sign longer deals, or even for me, the first time going to arbitration and having guaranteed money and knowing I wasn't going to get sent back down if I had a bad month. I had the best year of my career after my first year arbitration, because it was the first time I got to play without that extra pressure on the side of your own career, and your future and all that. Now you're just playing for the team, and that's when it's fun. It's hard playing for yourself. It's hard playing for a contract, because then you're looking up at the scoreboard on those numbers every day and trying to fix it, versus when you got a 5-year deal and you're hitting 190 at the end of April. It's I got 5 years to fix this.
And he shouldn't be playing for a contract. Freddie has already played for a contract. He should not have to do anything for a contract.
But you get to this point, if you hit 220 this year, you're not getting
that shouldn't affect his contract. The only thing that should affect it is a major injury,
But how many veterans have you seen have one rough year?
Well,
can't even. There's no chance he wouldn't get a deal. But I'm saying, how many times you see guys have that one rough year, and when you go into free agency, that's the year everybody's looking at. Nobody's
and
going
if
to
you're
say
Freddie, you're like, they should not allow him to go to free agency if they want to keep him,
right.
They
But
never
then
let
you might
Chipper
be
go to
pissed you
free
got
agency.
put in this position in the first place.
They never let Chipper go to free agency.
Yeah.
They always, even if it took like till spring training of the last year before they always make sure they got him signed. This is your one guy. You already got Acuna and Ozzy for nothing for the next, relatively.
Yeah.
This is the guy, man. If you don't treat this guy right, what signal does it say to the guys coming up behind him? To the Sorokas.
It'd be a bad look
to free agents. They got to do it. You got to make.
I was like, I don't know how bad I want to watch this team without Freddie on it. Because I got an emotional connection to him. I know the guy.
And if the Braves are struggling, that just makes it so much harder because he wants to win so bad. And if he's struggling, the team, it'd be different if the team was still playing in first place, playing well, and he was struggling. I think it'd be different. He'd be able to come out of this easier. But I think that's doubly contract. He's struggling, the team's struggling.
Yeah.
It's a lot of negativity right there.
Yeah, I haven't even, I haven't thought about it till like the last couple of weeks, but because we just thought it was a given. You just thought it'd be done by now.
Yeah. I haven't changed at all on what I think he deserves. They should give him 5 or 6 years. And you got to start at Goldschmidt's contract.
Yeah.
That's got to be a starting point. So it's got to be at least 25 million. But I'm figuring closer to 30, 5 years, 150. I think he's got to get 150 million, even if you stretch that over 6 years,
Yeah. And so that's why I'm saying you don't know what, even if there hasn't been an official offer, I don't know what
he says there's been no discussions. And Freddie is not the type to make the Braves look bad by saying there's been no discussions. If they've actually talked to him and said, here's what.
Yeah. That could
Freddie
be pretty frustrating in his shoes.
Freddie would have said, well, they made a real preliminary. They mentioned an offer 2 months ago, but nothing since then. He said there have been no discussions.
I don't like that.
And I would get from the team, I'd get from somebody on the team, they would say, that's not entirely accurate off the record. There have been preliminary. I haven't had anything like that. So, yeah, it's weird.
Good.
I know there's a lot on the table and all this, but what's more important? Nothing.
Yeah.
You've got all the other stuff done. The season has started. You can't really make a lot of deals until you get a little closer to the trade deadline. You're not going to go out and pick up a premier guy right now, You're not going to get a premier reliever. You could sign Shane Green, but you're not going to get trade for a premier reliever. Who's giving up premier relievers right now? Nobody
till July.
And
with that extra wild card, teams have been way less willing to make those deals too.
Right. The smaller playoff field this year, so maybe you can do it a little earlier, but nobody's doing it in the first week of May.
No.
Nobody's that far out. Well, there's a couple teams that far out, but they don't have anybody, right?
Yeah, that's why Shane Green's playing hardball. I keep thinking he'll sign any day, and he's still. I think he's starting to get some interest, but
yeah, I heard he's got. Yeah,
it'll come up.
Oh well. Anyway, yeah, the Freddie thing, it's a little disappointing. I think when it happens, I'll be like, okay, forget it. It happened.
Finally.
But why has it got to be this hard? Why you got to put the guy through anything like this? I don't understand that. I really don't.
That could be frustrating.
Why wouldn't you have at least tell him, look, just don't worry about it. It's going to get done.
Or it's not getting done.
Here's what we're thinking. Just so you know, here's what we're thinking. And then we'll talk about this later. Just something like that. Yeah. Yeah. If I'm him, I'm wondering. I'm like, what the hell do I have to do? I never complained one time during the rebuild. I never said this is not what I signed up for when you gave me that long-term deal. You never said we were going to go through this. You never you didn't say you were going to slash payroll this year. He has never complained one time about anything. He's been the ultimate company man.
Yeah.
Ultimate face for the franchise. Never whiff of controversy. He's never done anything embarrassing.
Yeah. So. It could be frustrating. I was just thinking about that the other day, wondering if that can affect him.
I wouldn't have thought so, but you got to start to wonder. We'll see. I wish we could get in a clubhouse because I'd like to talk to him, face to face.
Face to face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. He's got those 2 little youngins at home. Thank God for him. I'm sure that's helping right now a little bit. When he gets home, he can forget baseball when he's got 2 little infants. And Charlie's only 4.
The 2 little infants does not help.
Well, there's something to think about. There's something to think about other than what's going on at the ballpark.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe it's an escape, but it doesn't help with your sleep schedule.
Yeah, I can only imagine. All right. 7:55 is real. We'll be back on Thursday.
All right.
So hopefully there's something better to talk about after they play the Nats. They can change a whole lot by going there sweeping the Nats. And Nats are struggling too, man. Nats have had some injuries. Not going to see Strasburg is dinged up again.
Sure, so good.
Yeah,
we're not going to see him. He just
Soto's got a shoulder issue. So they're ripe for the sweeping. At least take the series from them.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, they need to do it. All right, that's it. We're out.
All right. See you next week.
See ya
you Thursday.